Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships for our Saturday edition video, which is going to be an upgraded commander build video here in the Tier 9 Japanese Battlecruiser battleship, the Adatara. It has been a decent line, playing up, going from Yamahari to Adatara, now having the Bungo, which I'll do probably first impressions on maybe this coming week, got to see how things go. If not, it'll be the following week. But anyhow, so I desire to go do an upgrade commander build video of this ship since it's the newest tech tree line in the game. Since it's been out of, I think it's like what, update 12.9 I think it hit the game in early access, something like that. Anyhow, so we're going to be talking about the type of battleship. We're going to look at the armor scheme, we're going to look at the upgrades, modules, commander skill, so on and so forth. So first off, we need to talk about what type of battleship is the Adatara. And honestly, she is a battleship that's more or less at the start of a game, she's the long range, and then she can go more into the medium range. And the example I gave in yesterday's video, Friday highlight, talked a showcase towards the end an example of getting too close too early. And because this ship is a battle cruiser, right, you're losing not a lot of health pool in comparison to other tier 9 battleships in the game. And also her armor layout just doesn't really allow you to take much punishment in general overall. So she's a battleship that does best playing more the long range. Then once the battle's progressed, more enemy ships are dead, it's easier to push up and make your presence felt even known more so. But let's talk about that armor layout. So kind of a few interesting things going on here. You have a 25mm fore end and aft end armor. So we go back here. You can see a little bit more of a difference back here. We actually have some 255mm fore and aft armor plating. So it's a little bit perhaps better in terms of the kiting roll. As an example, often I try to work myself more into that position just to have that, you can get that additional armor and you can just easily more disengage, which there are times with the Adatara that you are just simply going to need to disengage on the ship. But otherwise, you can see up here on the fore end, you have this 229mm, so kind of weird to go for like, 255 and 229. And you have the armor belt, but of course you also have the torpedo side plating, torpedo protection here. Then going up to the deck, it's 32mm, and then also 25mm on the bow and the stern. Let's go ahead and look at the armor before we look at the citadel on the guns. So you have 356mm plating on these 457s. Goes to 190, 190, 152, and then on the back, 190. So these turrets are a bit on the vulnerable side in terms of their side and rear plating armor, especially from up top. So you're probably going to be wanting to take main battery mod 1. I think that helps prevent incapacitation to your turrets. So that's pretty sure that's what I have running and have ran and playing the ship so far. But you get 350 instead of 356 up front, so that's better than nothing in that regard. Now we begin to take some of the plating away. You can see more of this armor belt, case armor belt, and take it away, and then we get down to the citadel armor. So you can see it's just a little bit above waterline here, and you can actually see it's kind of interesting because it actually rises up where your forward main battery turrets are, and in the rear it stays slightly lower. So that's a bit of an interesting thing here on the ship. So if you're trying to maybe punch through and hit that citadel, maybe you actually want to be aiming underneath the forward main battery turrets. But again, you have a little bit of a, so to speak, turtle belt armor scheme going on. It's going to make it a little difficult to punch through, perhaps, and break through in hitting that armor. But nonetheless, there it is. You're probably, you will be taking a lot of full pins in terms of the armor scheme throughout the ship with the 25 and a lot of 32mm covering it. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the modules. So you don't have any upgrades here for your main battery. With the reload in the 6th slot on upgrades, we have a 26.4 second reload time. We have a 180 return time of 51.7 seconds. Maximum HP shell damage 7,300. Maximum AP shell damage 13,500. Now this, of course, is without a commander. I have since moved the commander on. So maybe just for the fun of it, I'll throw a 10-point commander on. We can just throw Fuso on. Oh, we already have some things built here. Okay, that's fine. So you're going to see that 51.7 drop down to 43.1. And so you really need that on the commander to really help improve the turret traverse time and getting it lower. Otherwise, almost a minute is pretty rough. Reminds you of Yamato's guns. Then going into the hull, you have a hull A and a hull B. So hull A actually has 65,400 hit points, which, as an example, is not too far from the Massachusetts at tier 8, or North Carolina, which I think they're around 63,000 hit points. So this is the first upgrade you're going to want to go for, or module upgrade you're going to want to go for, to get you up to 71,100. It's not a lot, but I mean, almost that, well, that over 5,000 increase is going to help you that little bit more in terms of your survivability in the game. Your stock gunfire control range is 21.8 kilometers. Again, then you can upgrade that to 23.9. So you have a lot of range on this ship without really having to consider, I would say, taking range in the 6th slot. And you also have access to the high precision spotter, which I'll get into here shortly. In terms of her speed, 30 knots with serial mic flag plus 5% ship speed, you get up to 31.5 knots. So I like to run the serial mic flag here on the Adatara. Now in terms of her upgrades, I take the main armaments mod 1. This is reducing the risk of the main battery becoming incapacitated by negative 20%. Also improving the main battery survivability by plus 50%. And reducing the main battery repair time if the guns should become incapacitated by negative 20%. This ship is all about her main battery, hence why I would really encourage you to build into this, as it's rather favorable. Then, you know, Auxiliary Armaments Mod 1, that's for secondaries. This isn't a secondary battleship. She can't perform the brawling role very well. Her AA is poor. And you would take out Magazine Mod 1, risk of ship's magazine detonating by negative 70%, because you would just simply look to take Julie Charlie combat signal if you're playing randoms, ranked, or clan battles. Now the spotting aircraft, I'm a bit interested on this because now that they have the new consumable, the high precision spotter, as you can see, it doesn't look like a traditional spotter here as the consumable. If this would actually boost the time for a high precision spotter, because it only says for the spotting aircraft and rapid takeoff spotter consumables. So I don't know if this actually works with the high precision spotter. If one of you knows, please drop it down beneath in the comments. And then the question being 30%, I don't think you actually get a 4th salvo fired off in time if you're going for the main battery reload time. No, I don't think, maybe just barely, I have to look. In terms of the 2nd slot, only 2 options. I'd recommend doing the damage control system mod 1. This is going to reduce your risk of catching fire by negative 5% and risk of flooding negative 3%. And honestly, the ship needs as much as it can to help sustain the ship in the fight. 3rd slot, I've been a bit greedy. There's really 2 options to look at here. The first option I have elected to take and would recommend would be the aiming systems mod 1. This is improving your maximum main battery shell dispersion by negative 7%. In addition to the high precision spotter, when you're activating it, you're shaving off negative 10% on your maximum main battery shell dispersion. So I kind of like to think of when I use high precision spotter, I'm getting a total of negative 17% just by taking the aiming systems mod 1. Of course, this isn't a consumable. You're negative 7% in terms of your vertical and horizontal maximum shell dispersion. You always get this upgrade to your dispersion. So I'll put on the right side of the screen here what it looks like with and what it looks like without. Probably going to be anywhere between, I'm going to guess, 6 to maybe 14 meters off the top of my head. And this ship has a sigma of 2.1. So that's also quite nice. So these are pretty accurate guns. They're not as trollish as I would say compared to Izuma, which feels like it has a very large vertical dispersion. So I have this, it's almost like an assurance that your shells are gonna land where you've aimed. Now you do get a secondary battery firing range buff as well as a secondary battery shell dispersion. So if you're curious just to see what that looks like, it gives us a range of 7.3 kilometers. Oops. The other option to take would be the main battery mod 2. Your main battery traverse speed would be plus 15%. Now let me look here on my calculator because I want to see how much time this would shave off. 0.1 times 0.8. What did I just say that does? 15%, right? Yeah. I'm like questioning myself on that. It would bring you down to 36.6 seconds for 180-degree turn time, which is definitely not bad. So I know there are players in the game who can't really stand to have really slow turning turrets, so it's really up to you and how much you would see yourself maybe shifting your guns from side, starboard to port, and vice versa. So these are definitely both worth trying out. I just prefer the aiming systems mod 1 because I want that greater accuracy. Fourth slot, I've gone for the damage control system mod 2. This is going to reduce your fire extinguishing time and flooding recovery time by -15%, meaning you're putting out those fires and floods that much sooner. I don't normally always perhaps suggest or allude to this on these type of battleships, but the propulsion mod 1 I could see a little bit of a case being made for. Like, as example, I run this on Schlieffen because Schlieffen's a battlecruiser, but Schlieffen also has a fast damage control team where you have the standard damage control team here on the Adatara. So there's a little bit of me that's hesitant to give up the damage control system mod 2 and taking the prop mod 1. But I think they both have their benefits, so maybe that's something you want to look at. And I would say I would be more open to than like on a Zumo. Like, I would definitely be taking damage control system mod 2. But on Adatara, yeah, maybe I would actually consider taking that here. Fifth slot, really, it's the Consumables Systems mod 1. When you've built into full concealment, I think it drops you down from over 15. Do I have yeah. 15, and then your max conceal. Again, this is just a commander I've just thrown on for the illustration of this video since I've moved the previous commander off to up to the bungo. But you get a max conceal of 12.2, and that's really good for a tier 9 battleship to have a conceal of 12.2. Not many get that good of concealment at these higher tiers. So that's one of the strengths of the Adatara, that you can disengage when things get sticky. Right, you take a lot of punishment, you need to heal, you need to disengage, your flanks collapsed, etc., etc. The conceal really helps, and I think really helps with overall with the defense and survivability of the ship. So I would definitely recommend this and compared to the other two upgrades. Now the next thing here, as I'm getting distracted by a cat outside our window, would be the sixth slot. Really, the main battery mod 3 is pretty much the overall winner here. Main battery reload time, -12%. Main battery traverse speed, -13%. This helps you in bringing that reload time down to 26.4. I think otherwise what's like 30-second reload time. I'm just going to check that as I'm speaking. 30 times... Let's see, what did I just say? 12%. Brain's not all here today. And I'm typing numbers wrong into my phone. Yeah, so it's a 30-second stock reload time. So being able to increase your DPM, your damage per minute, and having, like with this, if you time it right, with how the high precision spotter is now, you can get 3 salvos off with it. So you immediately pop high precision spotter, I shoot my salvo, maybe adrenaline rush is also helping me out, and I get 2 more salvos in before the high precision spotter goes down, right? So that's really convenient. I have a couple, like maybe a second or 2 of aiming time in between. So I get 3 salvos off in total with having the main battery mod 3. Otherwise, you wouldn't get a full 3 salvos in, I think, without it. No, you wouldn't. Now, maybe adrenaline rush, of course, something like that. But you have such good gun range when you have 23.9 just with the upgrade of the gunfire control system. It's not really a case, I would say, in taking the gunfire control system mod 2. I'd be asking you, to extend that plus 16% out. Why do you want to play Adatara at 24, 25, 26 kilometers away? Like, you're just really removing yourself from the battle in that sense, where I really try to play this ship closer to conceal, max conceal 12.2, but really, especially in the start of the battle, I'm trying to play like 16, 17 kilometers away, or that longer range, especially given at the high tier. So that's my opinion there. Take it as you will. Now, her high explosive on the armament, you have a 35% chance of causing fires on target, and again, a maximum damage of 7,300. And since these are 457s, I do like utilizing HE. If there's a sub around, there's destroyers I want to shoot. Maybe if there's a really light cruiser and I'm afraid I'm just gonna simply overmatch the armor over penetration, then hey, it's a broadside mentor. Let me just switch to the high explosive and see if we can get a citadel in there, right? Has a penetration capacity of 77 millimeters and an initial shell velocity of 805 meters a second. Now, with the armor piercing, you actually see that initial velocity jump up. It's 860 meters a second. So if you're switching constantly between the salvos, you'll notice a slight difference in terms of their shell travel time. It's not huge, it's minute, but you may notice it, okay? These have a maximum damage of 13,500. Now, originally on the historical project proposed, this ship would have been equipped with 460s, if I understood what I read. The reason why Wargaming put 457s on is that you don't overmatch 32 millimeter. You overmatch 31.95 millimeters, something like that, with 457s. Where like Yamato, when you're having the 460s, she overmatches 32 millimeter, right? So when we're talking about the ship armor scheme, right, a lot of your higher tier ships in the game, you know, a lot of them have 25, maybe 27 millimeter bow, but then also a lot of 32, right? And you're seeing a lot of 32 here throughout the ship. So you just simply don't overmatch that, where Yamato will and get full pins and striking there. The maximum damage 13,500. You could buff that more with the super heavy AP, but I don't know if I'd really recommend that in terms of the commander. So just something to note in looking at there. As of right now, this is update 12.11 before update 13.0 arrives next week. You have a reload time of 30 seconds, 2 available flights, 1 attack flight in the flight, aircraft HP 2000, 10-kilometer range, and 2 bombs in the payload from 1 flight. Maximum bomb damage 4,200. Now there's some anti-submarine warfare, some depth charge changes coming into the game. They talked about reducing the reload time of the depth charges and reducing the damage because now you're being able to use depth charges more often, this, that, and the other. So we'll just have to see how it lands with these ships, these higher tier battleships in the game. So note that if you're watching this in 2024 and later, it might be that this depth charge information is a little different than actually what's in the game now. In terms of your consumables, damage control party, standard action time of 10 seconds. Okay, if I were to compare it to Izumo, it should be longer. No, it's only 10. Am I crazy? Am I crazy, guys? Why can't I find Yamato? No, I was thinking it has a longer time. Am I like just really off today? 22 seconds, okay. There. I don't know, let me compare it with North Carolina. Sorry, then we'll go back to that. I was expecting to see more. Okay, it's only 10 seconds, so that's interesting. So it's not your standard length in terms of action time, so excuse me for just saying standard. I meant to say standard damage control party. It's not a fast damage control team, as an example. Fast damage control party. So it's 10-second action time. We can bump that up a little bit with our commander skills, which I'll talk about. Cooldown time 80 seconds. You know, we can reduce that with November Foxtrot, and then you're looking at 76 seconds. Repair party, you only get 4. With commander build, you can, depending on what you do, what I do is I get myself up to 5, and yes, I have used all 5 repair parties on Adatara before. HP per second plus 355, action time 28 seconds, cooldown time 80 seconds. That is, the action time and cooldown time is very standard. We can utilize the India Delta combat signal, which increases how much health we're able to restore. And now you see that jump to 426. So I do run with India Delta combat signal. Again, November Foxtrot is going to bring us down to 76 seconds. Now here you have an option between fighter and high precision spotter. Really, you want high precision spotter. Fighters aren't really that great in the game. And when you get that additional negative 10% in terms of your maximum main battery shell dispersion, it's kind of the winner, right? You're going to be able to accurately land more salvos. And that is I guess a nice gimmick button, if you will, with this consumable, although Wargaming doesn't like that language. But instead of getting a plus 20% range in comparison to your normal spotter playing, you just get a plus 10%. and then you get a negative 10% on the main battery shell dispersion. Now that changes when we go up to Bungo. I think Bungo gets the negative 20% maximum main battery shell dispersion, but they made the change here on the Adatara. Action time only 55 seconds. Again, with the main battery mod 3, you time it right, you can get 3 salvos off in total in that time span, and a shorter cooldown time of 120 seconds, or your normal spotter plane is 240 seconds, right? And again, if we take the November Foxtrot, we can drop that down to 114 seconds. Now, in terms of what combat signals do I run here, this is pretty typical of what I run. I just run 7 of the 8 total when I'm playing randoms, as an example, with this ship. Now, moving on to the commander. So I just moved, this guy was originally for Fusel. There might be a change, one change I'd make in terms of the 1-point skill, but for now we'll talk about it. There's really, in terms of the three 1-point options, you could look at gun feeder, main battery shell type, switching time, negative 40%. You could look at emergency repair specialist, where you're getting your repair party and your damage control team back off cooldown time that much quicker to utilize. Or you could even look at preventive maintenance, where the risk of modules becoming incapacitated is reduced by negative 30%. This mainly being in talking about your main turrets, steering gears and engine becoming incapacitated, and a slight buff to your AA and your secondaries, which AA is poor on the ship. The secondary capability is also poor on the ship, really not worth building into. So really here, you want, as a 1-pointer skill, emergency repair specialist or gun feeder. Those are the 2 you're looking at. And that gun feeder brings your shell switching time down to 15.8 seconds. Okay, so let's pretend that you decide to do gun feeder, purposes of this video, and then I'll talk about what my preference might be here. Then for a 3-point commander, you take grease the gears, bring you down to, what do we say, 43.1 seconds. A 6-point build, Adrenaline Rush, it's really nice to get that reload time down even further, you know, down to 26 seconds, 25.5, 25 seconds, with these 8 accurate 457mm main battery guns with that 2.1 Sigma. So I really like running Adrenaline Rush here on the Adatara. And most ships in the game, I pretty much take Adrenaline Rush regardless. Then for a 10-point build, honestly, what I'm going to start off with, you know, if I've taken Concealment on the 5th slot, I'm going to take Fire Prevention first. This reduces the risk of catching fire by negative 10% and reduces the maximum number of fires. So if you're a little unsure how Fire Prevention works, just to briefly explain it to you, without Fire Prevention, you'd have 1 fire on your bow, 1 on your stern, and 2 on your superstructure. Fire Prevention eliminates 2 fires on your superstructure and only 1 fire on the superstructure, which means you're just taking less damage as a whole, less fires ticking, less health pool hit points evaporating. So, and you know, a lot of HE spam at the higher tiers here, they're aiming at your superstructure, and you have a pretty large smokestack, but your superstructure overall, it's pretty small, right? So I would recommend Fire Prevention first, and then I would go for your Concealment Expert next to drop down to that negative 10%. So you have 12.2 kilometer detectable range by sea, and then by air it's 9.5 kilometers. After that, then I would take the Emergency Repair Expert. Your damage control party action time is going to go up by plus 10%. So we said that was 10 seconds, so plus 10%. Now it's 11 seconds. You have unlimited number of damage control parties here on the Adatara. Your repair party consumable action time is going to go up by plus 10%, and you're going to get that 5th repair party. Okay, and seeing here, plus 10% means you're going to go up to 30.8 seconds in terms of your consumable action time for your repair party. So again, it just means you're able to heal back even more damage with having taken the Emergency Repair Expert. And then for, so this is 10-point, 14-point, 18-point, 21-point commander, I would take Basics of Survivability. Module restoration time, negative 15%. Fire extinguishing time, negative 15%. Flooding recovery time, negative 15%. This is a pretty robust build overall. Now, I'm on the fence regarding the gun feeder, if I would take it, or if I would simply take the emergency repair specialist, so my damage control party and my repair party are coming off of cooldown time that much more quickly. So really, it's up to you. Like, for example, on Yamato, I take emergency repair specialist, and my build is the exact same as it is here. But that's with 460s and a different armor scheme and just a few different things going on with that ship. I could see either of these working decently well, as really it would be up to you in that situation. I have a hard time considering the super heavy AP shells because, yes, your maximum battery AP, main battery AP shell damage is going to go up by plus 7.5%. So if you want to see what that would look like, that would bump you up to 14,513. So not bad, right, in that regard, but it's the side effects. Your fire extinguishing time is plus 25%, and your flooding recovery time plus 25%. Now, rather recently, Wargaming introduced the fire damage, flooding damage, negative 10%. So they were trying to make this skill a little more attractive to take. If you only play this as a sniper, like 16 kilometers and back, then yeah. But at some point, one of the key roles battleships have in the game is that you also you expend a little bit of your hit points in taking some pressure off your team. You're not to be afraid as a battleship in World of Warships to let some of your hit points disappear. You're an extent, you're a punching bag for your destroyers and your cruisers when they need to disengage, or you need to just kind of make your presence a little bit more known. Now, you have to do that very mindfully with the Adatara, otherwise you will just end up dying, right? Not a good look. But for a 21-point build, this is what I would recommend, or I would consider the emergency repair specialist in place of the gun feeder. You really need grease the gears for that main battery traverse speed, as otherwise it's quite horrendous. So the video is 27 minutes long, so I don't know if I really want to go much longer. I would say one more thing that could make this ship, in terms of the build, is that you could actually do this. You could take Brisk. It's not normal that I recommend Brisk. I take it on Vermont. I like it on Illinois. But your concealment is just so good, right? And now you're getting that plus 10% when you're not detected. So you're adding 31.5 with Zero Mic. 31.5 times 1.10, 34.6 knots. So that's actually not too bad if you're wanting to get around the map. And usually this kind of benefits more the sniping battleships. So this would also be a build I would be comfortable with running if I didn't want to take the basics of survivability. So either do this build or even be open to this build, and then you get both gun feeder and you get emergency repair specialist. I think if you don't take the gun feeder and you've taken basic survivability, these two skills sync well in that regard. So that's kind of my first leaning towards, but I would be very interested in running that kind of build here in Adatara just because the concealment is so good in between the shots and salvos, or if you're needing to disengage, you can get away even faster, right? As seems like more and more faster battleships are coming into the game. So that's going to bring this video to a close. So I hope you appreciated just my thoughts, my opinions, my perspective on the Adatara with the build and the commander skills. Let me know what you're running if you have questions about a skill I didn't discuss or go over. Otherwise, it's just a lot of these possibilities, and then I really do my best to try to keep these videos underneath 30 minutes. So if you liked today's video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you're subscribed, thanks so much. I appreciate it, and thanks for those of you who support me on Patreon. So until next time, take care.